Hi, it's Fabian, and in this video I want to walk you through a few strategies that I use to live in the moment, even during times that we're facing right now where the corona crisis is happening and where we don't know what next week is going to happen and when our lives are really restricted. And all the strategies are based on this simple framework that you can prepare for the future, but you can only deal with it in the present. And this framework applies not only for this crisis, but for any challenges that you're facing or going through right now or in the future that may not even be associated with the corona crisis. However, that's a great opportunity to apply this model and to see how that works. By reading this statement, you may think, yes, it makes sense, right? But how do you actually live it in practical terms? How do you actually prepare properly for the future without obsessing over it, without worrying about it? And how do you actually deal with the crisis and the things that are happening right now in a way so that you're able to stay in the present, to stay in the moment? And keep in mind as we go through this, I'm not a medical or a health expert on the corona crisis. I'm just using certain strategies to get myself through this period of time while being relaxed, while staying present in the moment, and don't let my whole life and life experience be dominated and overwhelmed by this thing. So first, we're going to go through how I personally prepare, and second, we're going to go through how I deal with it and how I'm able to stay in the present moment without becoming overly anxious. Now, the first thing I can do to prepare myself is to apply those protection measures and make them a daily routine so they are already automatic. So I protect myself from getting the coronavirus, and also I protect other people from me if I should have the virus inside me. This means I'm already training my brain and training myself to wash my hands after the toilet, after I sneeze, before I prepare food. And if I do so, wash them for at least 20 to 30 seconds. So I train myself to do that. Then I also really make sure that I don't touch my face so often, and really observe myself when I touch my face and remind myself that I shouldn't touch it. This is really helpful because if you observe yourself, you'll be amazed how often during the day you're actually touching your face, you're touching your nose, you're touching your eyes, and so on. And I really monitor that. And in a way, I'm able to reduce the amount of times I touch my face. And also, I'm able to notice when I'm about to touch my face that I can stop myself in the moment. So that's the second thing that I can do to make a daily habit. Then the next thing I can do is if I have to cough, that I don't cough into my hand, I don't cough into the open air, but I cough into my elbow, and the same goes with sneezing. Then it's suggested to keep a distance to other people when I'm walking around outside of at least 1 meter to 2 meters to be safe. And therefore also avoid situations where keeping the distance is hard, where, for example, mass gatherings or meeting with a lot of other people at certain places, that I also avoid those things. And eventually, if I would feel sick, to make sure to stay at home and don't run around outside. So these are the things I can do and make them a daily habit, integrate them into my daily routine already. The next thing on the preparation list is to get reliable and, very important, relevant information about how the situation is developing specifically in my area. And to do that, I only spend around 5 to 10 minutes every second day, every other day, so not daily, to look at the sources that are relevant to me. Which means I specifically set a timer of 5 minutes on my phone whenever I'm about to get updates on news about the corona crisis. And when the timer is up, then I decide, okay, have my questions been answered? And if they didn't, I set the timer for another 5 minutes and look for answers to my specific questions that I have about the situation. So I don't just mindlessly consume news about the coronavirus that are endless and are getting updated every day, because that would just make my brain circuits more anxious and really distracting, which is something that is actually could hinder my ability to protect myself and protect others from me. Now, the other thing I can do to prepare myself is to maximize my immune system, to make sure that my body gets all the nutrients it needs to really operate at the maximum capacity to defend itself against this virus. And now I've already been living fairly healthy, focusing on a mainly plant-based way of eating without a lot of processed food. However, if you want to get more information about this, here's a great book called Super Immunity by Joel Fuhrman, where he outlines the processes and also the types of foods that you should consume on a regular basis to maximize your immune function. And aside from the food you eat, the other thing that can lower your immune function is actually stress levels. And a lot of those stress levels comes from the thought you have. And this can not only be thoughts about work that makes you feel stressed, about other people that makes you feel stressed, but also thoughts about the corona crisis, right? So if you, for example, consume a lot of news that make you feel anxious and stressed, that puts your body in stress mode. And when your body is in stress mode, that lowers your immune function. It makes you more vulnerable to actually the virus. And the other part on the list that I can prepare is to stock up on basic items, basic food, if I would ever be have to self-isolate myself, or if certain stores are closed. So these are all the things I have on the list to prepare myself. Maybe there are more things coming on in the next few days. However, these are the basic things that I do personally and that makes sense for me. Now let's go to the next part. How do you deal with it in the present moment? You see, I've already actually dealt with a lot of things on this preparation column here. Now it's about, okay, now I have prepared myself for the future, whatever's gonna happen in the next week, the next few days. But now, how do I deal with the uncertainty, with the anxiety that comes up with being in this time that I've never experienced before? So first, I'm gonna focusing on only responding to current events, to things that are happening in front of me right now, because it's impossible for me to deal with things by worrying about the future, right? What might happen, what might not happen, because I've already prepared for the things I can control, and all the other stuff I can't control by worrying about it, thinking about it, right? I can't control what things are gonna be, what shops or stores or places are gonna be closed up next week, right? What restrictions are put on the citizens of the countries, including me, by next week. I can't control that, so I'm not gonna be worrying about it, which means I'm gonna accept the unknown. I'm gonna accept that I cannot predict what's gonna happen next week. And that's okay, because I don't have to predict any of that, because I will always respond to current events as they unfold. And of course, I get reliable and relevant information on how events might develop in the future. But again, that's only a prediction that may or may not become true. And then I will evaluate, okay, does it make sense to prepare for this future situation? If it does make sense, I'm going to add a few things to the list to prepare for maybe a new unfolding situation in the future. If it doesn't make sense to prepare for this situation in the future, then I'm just going to accept the unknown. What I also found really helpful to deal with this situation is to see it as just an experience that I'm going through right now, that I'm having right now. Because this situation can be good or bad, depending on the perspective you have about this, right? You could say, well, I'm so restricted, I can no longer go to restaurants, I can no longer meet my friends, I have to isolate myself, and all this stuff makes it really bad. But then you can think, well, at least it's gonna prepare us for the future. And if a more deadly virus might spread in the future around the world like this, now we have tested a process, we know what works and what we need to do and when we need to act and how we need to act to prevent the spread, because we have gone through this experience. Or you might see it as an advantage because it helps you to apply these strategies on your own life personally and to master this crisis, and you grow personally through it and will be much more stronger and confident in your ability to deal with future events that might have a similar characteristic. However, I admit, still my thoughts sometimes drift to the future, drift into the area where I feel anxiety, right? When you read the numbers of people that get infected each day and are worried about what's gonna happen, what's gonna be decided next week by the government and so on. And whenever I notice myself, my thoughts drifting into the future and away from the present, I catch myself and I refocus my thoughts in the now, and I put my attention on something that is right in front of me. It could be to look out of the window and look at the trees that are outside, or it could be to simply drink a cup of water and really notice and savor the experience of drinking the cup of water and really practice refocusing my attention in the present moment. And that's really helpful because this will put you at ease. And remember, you're not alone in this. There are millions of people all around the world going through the exact same challenge right now, and I hope you found some of the things helpful. If you did, here are 2 more videos that may help you apply a few of the strategies I share with you in more practical terms. And if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up and also leave a comment below which of the things I've shared did you find the most helpful.